This is the Friendship Quilters Guild that we provide this quilt show once a year at Schmitt. And it usually coincides with their open house, but this year they're not having an open house, so it's our quilt show. We have about 30 members to our guild, and each member is, asked to bring 2 quilts to put in the show. This year, I'm the featured quilter.
Okay.
So I have the whole end down at the other end with my quilts and whatever. But this we made, I don't know how many years ago, this quilt, and we all did our own selves. So it was whatever your favorite color was, or, you don't wear a dress, so you put pants on yourself. Right. Or whatever. So we did that, I don't know how many years ago, but we try to put it up for every Friendship Quilters show.
Well, this is, how many are there? I didn't count.
I don't even know. That's a good question.
28-ish?
Yeah. 24, 30.
30, okay.
Yeah, 30. So that's about the size of our guild now, about 30 members.
All right.
Okay. This quilt here was made by Barbara Duke, and it's beautiful hand quilting, and she changed the pattern in each bird for how she quilted it. And so it gives it a different look because there's different patterns of hand quilting in each bird.
But these are, is this new or is this?
No, new? What do you mean new?
I mean, like it's just been done?
Yes, just been stitched.
Okay, because it looks familiar, so I don't know. But she may have done others. I was here, and I haven't been here since 2020 for that quilt show.
Yeah. So anyway, this is her entry for this one. And this quilt here, it was made by Ruth West. And
scrappy quilts.
Yes, it's square within a square, country threads, and then so she left it unfinished on the squares, which gives it another look. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you wash it, you get more fraying.
It looks authentic to me, like they would have done that.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And this here is a piece that my sister made, Amy Murphy.
Amy Murphy.
And this is the new thing, slow stitching they call it.
Okay.
It's basically using all kinds of stitching, and it's supposed to be relaxing for you. So you start out with whatever you want. She started out with designs in the middle and then made circles around it. And this one has a different pattern around it. She added buttons and charms and beads to add to the look of it. But this is the popular embroidery thing now, to do slow stitching.
It looks almost like something that you could hand generational with all your favorite something that maybe your grandmother had. And
Yes. You can add whatever you wanted to it. And this is what we call a panel. And you can buy the panel and then put a couple borders on it and then quilt it, and it's all done. A lot of them are done for holidays.
Or you could hang it on, the residents could have it on their doors.
Yes, and we do hang quilts here in the hallway for the residents,
That's
so
nice.
we can change them out for different holidays. Yes. And this quilt here is
Funky Christmas Table Topper.
By Barb Prohaska from Muscatine.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is, you take some similar fabrics and sew them together however you want, and then quilt it however you want. Yeah.
Now this looks very old-fashioned to me.
Yes, it is. I don't know what the pattern is on it.
Mystery quilt.
Mystery quilt pattern. Well, if you do a mystery quilt, whoever's doing it, usually the president, will give you one piece of the pattern at a time.
Oh.
So you don't know what it's going to look like when you finish it, and you don't know where your colors are going to be on the squares or on the blocks.
You're solving a mystery or something.
Yeah, well,
you want to pretend.
But the mystery is you don't know how it's going to look when it's all put together.
Correct.
So it's sometimes really hard to pick what colors you're going to use in the quilt. They'll say a dark, a medium, a large, or 3 darks, 3 mediums, 3 large, and you try to do the similar fabric.
It sounds like a community, but it is a community effort.
Yes. Yeah. This pattern is apple core. You can see the apple core, and then you sew them one flat, one upright, one horizontal, and
the edge is
yes,
yeah.
and the edge is
Yep.
real fun to sew the binding on. She took a class to make that. I really like it. I'd like to make one like it. Yeah. This is a quilt made for Valor.
Quilt of Valor.
Quilt of Valor by Kathy Cockroft. And what's interesting, I think, on this one, I was sitting and looking at it, your blocks, here is one block, here is another block, and then repeat this block and repeat that block. But it gives you a different design when you put it together, because you've got these pieces that look like they're long that way, but they're actually blocks put together.
Oh, I see that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's a beautiful quilt. Well, they all are beautiful.
Yeah, it looks almost like this section was done like this, but
Yes.
it wasn't.
Yeah, but it wasn't. No, it's done by
Yep.
a block, a block, a block.
Yep.
Yeah,
Jigsaw puzzle.
yeah.
And what is next here?
You want to go all the way around and come back? to
Sure.
this? Okay. All right.
Looks like another, I call it a door.
Well, wall hanging.
Wall
or,
hanging,
yeah,
yep.
or whatever. This is by Ruth West. It's Christmas. It's yo-yos. Yo-yos are made with a big circle of fabric, and you turn her under a 1/4 inch and gather it, and then you have a yo-yo.
And there's the string.
Yes, and there's the garland, and she's got animals down here sewn underneath it,
Yeah.
and a bird at the top.
So now I'm Methodist head, but I was always ordained.
And this one is done by Linda Simmons, and it's really cool because she's got clouds, stars, moons, and it's just real interesting that way to quilt it, rather than
Okay.
a pattern for quilting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another hanging.
Yes,
for a-
this is a wall hanging. Fall Leaves by Aline Wanless, and the leaves are blanket stitched on, and she saw it in a magazine and she liked it, and so then she made it, and she used leaves to make her patterns for the leaves. She pieced the back first out of the squares, and then she added the branches and the leaves. Very nice.
Oh, this is nice. Like a stained glass window.
This is by Aline Wanless also. It's called Reverse Applique Leaves. Again, she saw it in a magazine and wanted to do it, and it's applique. Some of these pieces here are appliqued.
What does that mean?
It means you either turn under the edge or you stitch it raw edged, which then you do some kind of an embroidery stitch over it.
I like the colors.
Yes. And the border really accents the pieces, picks up all the colors in it.
I pause at the good thing.
This one is called Painted Leaves. Again, Aline Wanless made this one. She stippled, machine quilted around some of the leaves that are pieced, and then these are pieced and these are appliqued. And she says we had a class on maple leaves, and then she saw a TV program and liked what it was, and so she made this wall hanger.
Joyce said,
Beautiful.
Wednesday through Friday.
She collected and painted the leaves and then pressed them on the fabric.
Oh boy,
That's
a lot
how
of
she
work.
did those. That's, yeah,
So,
beautiful.
one Friday I was there.
And this is well, both of these are
Uh-huh.
Two other people.
wall hangings. This one is done with little panels that you can buy and then quilt around it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know who did that. I mean, it's on the other side. Okay.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, this is by Cheryl Harris, blue and white table runner. She made this quilt out of scrappy fabrics that she had. You can see the really fine quilting she did in here. I mean, it's just almost stitching next to each other and along the edge. This one is called Christmas Fun. Ruth West made it, and it's a table runner with 4 placemats.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So it's seasonal. It's got snowmen, so you can use it all winter long.
I like that. Yeah, cozy. Yeah, yes, yes. And they've still got where you can.
This quilt is called Christmas Bright. It's by Amy Murphy. It was a mystery quilt. This was a mystery quilt pattern given to us to work on, not knowing what the finished project was going to look like. That's what a mystery quilt is.
Okay.
So you don't know what fabrics you're going to have where. They usually tell you a dark, a medium, a light, or so many darks, so many mediums, so many lights. But
Oh, sure.
this one here is called Christmas and Easter.
This would be nice on somebody's door.
Yes. That's by Ruth West. It was a panel. This is a panel.
Yes.
And then she added a border and made it into a wall hanger.
Well, this Ruth West sounds busy.
Yes, we've seen several of her
Right.
quilts. Yes, she is busy. And
Take
this
Flight by Jean Fuller.
Fuller, yes. You notice the beautiful butterflies. She appliqued those on, and I don't know if she put the crystals on the butterflies before she appliqued them on. I would have if she didn't. But she made the background, and then she added all the butterflies on top of that, and they have crystals. And this is really neat for the border to add a piece like that and not have it all just straight and up there. And then she's got butterflies along the border also. Very pretty. This was Christmas COVID quilt by Barbara Duke. So she got it as a kit, and she made it during COVID, so she had to stay home to make it. But,
Yep.
yeah, it was something to do. She said it saved the day.
Yeah.
And it's all batik fabrics.
Oh, I like batik.
Yeah, very, very pretty batiks. Yes. Yes. And this little wall hanging is called the Cottage. Sonia Beck made it. And the center block is a drawing that is colored in with fabric crayons. And quilting is done by embroidery stitching and beading. It's got little beads all around the frame.
Oh, I see that now.
Yeah. That adds a lot to it.
Well,
This quilt is a medallion quilt, and Amy Murphy made it. She called it Medallion Lightful. All of these pieces are cut separately and then appliqued on, and she's done the blanket stitch around all of the pieces. She saw it online, and then she sent for the pattern, and then quilted it, and then she quilted all the way around it too. The corners are all quilted with black thread.
Oh. So how much of, general question about how much is done by hand and how much on a machine?
Whatever you decide you want to do.
That's a lot of work either
Yes.
way.
Well, this was all done by hand, but I've seen some quilts where you've got your special stitches and you can buttonhole stitch around your applique pieces or other pieces. You know, it's just a different choice of how you're going to do it.
And this looks like fall, muted
Yes.
colors. And
This is called a two-color quilt. It's called Jelly Twist by Barb Prohaska. And so fabric comes in jelly rolls, which is a certain width, and then you can cut it in different sizes. She cut them in 2.5-inch strips, or strips cut from a fat quarter, and then put the colors together. So this is called a two-color quilt.
this looks old-fashioned.
This was our past president's quilt that the Guild made for her. This is, it belongs to, my brain is going dead, Claudia Barris. And she chose the fabric. And these are all plaids or checks. And they're really hard to get, you know, so you've got an even line with your plaid, not a wavy line.
Oh yeah.
And so So she wanted it out of this fabric. So the guild cut the pieces and we pieced it in 2 days. And what I like about it is she put the red in it. And the red, there's a lot of tans and browns
Yes.
in this fabric. And with the red, I think just makes it pop. It really
It
adds
does.
to it. And this
Well, I
is another
see
quilt by Claudia Harris.
Hearts or Valentines.
Yeah,
Or
it's
something.
called Batik Hearts. So again, this is batik fabric that she used. And she found it in a book with 2 designs. Finally, a grandmother sew all hearts for that wonderful boy. A book with the design for it. And the quilting is really pretty in red thread.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you know. So you're being brave to do that or have somebody use that because you can see all the quilting stitches. Some you can't. This is another one of Claudia Barris's quilts. Quilters Star, Hunter Stars. And she went to Oregon for a sister's quilt show, that's the name of the company, and to take a class. And I went to Sisters in 2005 and finished the quilt this year. And it has batiks in it also.
Okay.
This is
Isla's?
Isla's quilt. Isla's is a little girl adopted by our nephew as an infant, and then she's so special to them. They wanted to make a quilt for her and decided to make red work. This is all red work embroidery. And Vetta's mother, Elma Statzer, they used to sell these for a penny. These printed on
Oh, okay.
red work pieces. You could buy them in a store for a penny. So this is second reproduction.
I know it looks
And,
like water, but I know you.
Anyway, it's beautifully red worked and then quilted
I go, yeah.
across the
And a big one.
Yes. This quilt is Log Cabin in Blues, and it was pieced and quilted by Marcia Wakuta. If anything's blue, we know she probably made it, because that's what color she likes the
Okay.
best. She said she started this quilt 15 years ago and finally finished them last summer, and assembled the quilt top, and then she quilted it with 2 colors of ribbon thread. So you can see blue thread and white thread. So basically she quilted it twice with hearts and swirls and daisies.
Well, why can't you find it?
This one is called Goodnight Star by Karen Bell, and it was quilted by Quilt Peddler, which is a store in Boscoville, or no.
I've heard of it on the radio.
Yeah. Anyway, it's my first foundation paper piecing quilt. Paper piecing allows for crisp, sharp points, which she has. But the colors are just...
Yeah. All right.
Okay. This is a wall hanging made by Carol Moon, and it's called Pink Flowers. The original pattern was misplaced, and so she had the kit but had to figure out what to do with it, with the
Okay.
fabrics. And so these are different batiks, the greens and the pinks, and okay. The stems, bees, and leaves and flowers were enhanced with machine stitching, and the raised flower was purchased in a art studio in Spring Green, which is that flower right there. Yeah. This is called a 2-color quilt also. It's red and white, and it's by Carol Moon, and it was quilted by Marilyn Olson of Bear Valley.
She reupholstered a chair for me
Oh.
a couple years ago.
She's a long arm quilter, so she quilted it for her. The center is made by using many red and white 2.5-inch squares and triangles. 2.5-inch squares and 6.5-inch red squares. The border is 1 inch white, and then it's 4 inches of the red to frame the quilt. But this is called a 2-color quilt. Red and white. This is a table runner, I would call it, not a.
Okay.
And it's
With
made,
mermaids.
yes, made by Ruth West. It was a panel. These pieces were, this was bought as a panel of the blue, I think, and then the inside ones. And then she finished the edge. This quilt is by Suzanne Zabranick. It's called La Roserie, French for a Rose Garden. It's made with French General fabric, which is really cool fabric as far as I'm concerned. She was in a quilt shop in Kentucky and saw the pieces, the pattern. I love scrappy quilts with lots of pieces. I used only French General fabric of reds and grays from my stash. The background fabrics are many neutrals from my stash. So different colored background pieces. And this is a,
Home Tweet Home.
yep, Home Tweet Home. Move the paper. See the birdhouse, and then the birdhouse with a bird. This is by Ruth West, and she made this to hang in my bathroom.
All the
So it
buttons.
says Home Tweet Home. This quilt was made by Suzanne Zabranick, and it's called Schoolcraft Log Cabin. The pattern and design were by Suzanne Zabranick, and she loves log cabin quilts and scrappy quilts also, so she included both of these in her quilt. And the center is a pinwheel on the blocks,
Yep.
and so she did real small pinwheels. The Schoolcraft part of the name came from the section of Richland Center that my Park Street home was located.
This looks like it could be used really in some degree, whereas some of them look like, well, you don't dare use it, just
Oh,
you hang
we
it.
want you to use your quilts.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. When I make a quilt, I want them to use it. If you wear it out, that gives me better feeling because I know
Well,
they liked it.
Good. That's a good
Yeah,
point.
yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. And then this end of the show, I'm Lorna Maxwell. I'm the featured quilter for this show.
Okay.
So all of the quilts in this area are mine that I've made. So anyway, this quilt here is applique and then tongues. I love tongues. They put tongues on old wool bed quilts just for decoration. They put it around the outside edge. So I've added it to some of my quilts.
What?
And
How did that get started?
it's from England. I don't know.
1800s? Who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah. And then I added buttons to all of the tongues, which are from the 30s and 40s. And the other is applique, reproduction, 30s and 40s fabric. Mm-hmm. So they've made it.
It looks very old-fashioned.
Yeah, it is. And then my frame piece is made with 1/4-inch hexes, and it's a 1/4 inch here where the seam is, not across the hexagon. And so to make it, you baste your fabric to paper, and then you whip stitch the pieces together after you get them all done.
Okay.
And then when you get like a section like this done, then and then add this, you can take the paper and basting stitches out of the center and move on,
Wow.
because it holds it together. And I'm sure the frame was like a mirror frame, but I love the way I used it because you could see my stars went through the middle
Lap 0.
and then
Yes.
on each
Total
corner.
1.02
Yep.
miles.
This is a table topper made out of men's neckties, again using hexagons. I love hexagons. So, and then the back is a piece of fabric, and then I used hexes for the border because I didn't want to put a binding on like that.
And I'm sure it's not difficult to find men's ties.
Well, it's
You
getting harder
Is
to,
it?
but not in my house.
You found a good use for men's ties.
Yes, yes, yes. And this piece here is, it's from a book called Following Thread, Needle Love, and it's made with wool. The pumpkins and the leaves are wool, and the vine is wool. I love to make things with wool, and then the other, it's different embroidery stitches on the pumpkins with pearl cotton.
Yeah, it gives it the wool is a whole different texture.
Yes, I love to do things with wool. And the quilt back here, the pattern is courthouse steps, and I had to use a wall to plan where I was putting things, because you had to put this block with this block with this block with this block and move them around so they weren't all together. And I finished it in Iowa at a quilt retreat, and people that were there, I said, do I have to put a border on it? They said, no, just do the green on the edge. And I said, thank you. I was ready to have it finished by then. Yes. And the quilt here in the chair is Sunbonnet Sue. This is original 20s, 30s, 40s fabric. Or this one over here was reproduction. And so there's applique and then and then embroidery on the bonnets, ribbons. The pillow is made out of wool. I did try trying to make a rug, a wool rug, hooked rug. Mm-hmm. Just did the center like that and then added the petals of wool around the outside edge of it.
And what museum piece do we have here? Where did you steal this? Like from the
My
Louvre?
son gave it to me for Christmas.
Wow.
And I told him I'd like to know where the crown is because I think it looks valuable.
Yeah. Why don't you have, isn't this like 3 by 5 feet? You could put it on the wall.
Oh, no, I don't need it that big. He said, just mix it in with your family pictures and see if anybody notices.
I noticed right away. I thought, boy, that queen looks familiar.
Yeah, looks like somebody I know.
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah. That was fun. This is another wool piece, and then the stitching, the embroidery for the words. I like to do things with wool. And these books here are the slow stitching again. You use different embroidery stitches. This is my flower book, and then you put a notebook inside and you put your notes in it. But I made the wool flowers first and then added the other stitching to it with squares. And this is my quilting book, and so I have information in there on quilting. And again, it's called slow stitching. But you have a piece of fabric that's double the book. You do your stitching, and then you finish it off on the inside, on both ends.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's very practical. You can use that every day.
Yes, yes. And this quilt here is made with Aborigines fabric. My husband and I went to Australia and New Zealand, and about 2009, and I marked out quilt shops that I'd find, in any advertising. So this is Aborigines fabric. The Aborigines women would make dot pictures, and they would sell them. But there was a fabric company that bought several pieces and then printed it on fabric and sold it. I hope the ladies got money from it, but I don't know. So it's just, the pattern I think is called Yellow Brick Road, and you can't even see the pattern or the blocks. But it has grubs in it. There's grubs.
Mm-hmm, I see that.
There's spiders. There's snakes. Because that was what was in their world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and kangaroos. This piece back here I put on my dining room table, and it's hexagons and wool, and then I did stitching over the wool and around the wool. And then this pillow here is made with yo-yos. The little ones are called dime-size yo-yos. You take a circle of fabric and gather the edge and pull it up, and then you end up with your yo-yo with the center pulled together. The picture up here is made out of wool, and again I use the pearl cotton to applique and to sew the pieces on. I have a collection of frames because I do a lot of stitchery, and I try to put the piece with the frame after I finish it. And this quilt here is called a joyous tessellation.
What is tessellation?
I knew you'd ask. It's a math term. A tessellation.
Well, that's why I didn't know it.
Yes, my son knew it. A tessellation is created when a shape is repeated over and over again, covering a place without any gaps.
Oh.
So this is a tessellation because the elongated hexagons and the 1-inch squares. There's no opening in between any of the design. This quilt took me 3 years to make because you base your fabric to the piece of paper, and when you do all that, then you start putting the pieces together by whip stitching them together. And when you get an outside edge on it, then you can take the paper and the basting stitches out.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And I stitched this, and I could take it with me. I could make the, baste the fabric to the paper or then start putting them together. And this quilt took me 3 years, and I worked on it in Illinois, Texas, Iowa, Paris, France, Provence, France, and many other places. And the quilter is Marcia Wakuda. She quilts with a long arm quilting machine, but it's not computerized.
Oh.
So she can control where she wants to quilt, and she's wonderful. And so I would make an extra 4 blocks together, and then she'd take it home and do different patterns of quilting on it, and we'd decide what I wanted.
A lot of work.
Yes. Okay, this pillow's made out of neckties.
I see that.
And then these are the ends of the neckties, and then I have necktie clip things on it.
Oh, my dad had a paisley. Everybody did, I think.
Yeah. And this piece underneath is also made out of neckties and decorative stitching from my machine. I made this I taught a 1 hour, speaking of her, a 1 hour class at the Wisconsin Quilt Expo in Madison, so I made pieces out of neckties. And this is the yo-yos again with buttons.
Okay.
I like to make pin cushions, so this is a wool pin cushion, that's a pin cushion, the strawberry and the watermelon.
Oh, I like the strawberry.
Yeah, and this was here is a pin cushion too. This is called a sewing ball, and so you make it with hexagons and you sew it together like a ball.
1998.
Yes, it's been a while. And this was just a decorative piece to put on a basket. And my friend Kay Niles made the basket for me.
She made that?
She made the basket. Isn't that beautiful?
It is.
Oh, they're hiding their pop in there. No, it's holding down my basket. And then I found this pattern to go on a basket, and it was the right size, so I did that with wool.
Wow.
And then sewed it together.
This is very, did you mention this with the?
No, that's it. That's counted cross stitch.
Cross stitch is what I was trying to think
Yes,
of.
and I have done a lot of counted cross stitch. And
Very
then,
old fashioned.
yes, sewed it into a pillow. The piece in the corner is called Pink Bubblegum and Feed Sack Remembered, with the assistance of Elmer. When I went to the Quilt Expo in Madison, I learned that you could use Elmer's glue, school glue, on the corner of where you were trying to match up seams. So I was trying to match a seam like right here, and so you have these pieces, and then you turn it over and put right sides together, and you usually put a pin in there to hold it in place. But if you use a dab of Elmer's glue, touch it with an iron, it doesn't move like a pin does. And so I started this. It was a challenge from Aline Wanless when she was president in 2020. And because of the small little squares, I put it back in the box and didn't work on it for a while. Until I learned the trick with Elmer's glue.
Oh, good old Elmer's.
So Elmer is on my label.
Yep.
I took a picture of it from the bottle and added it to my label.
It reminds me of a child's quilt. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's just whatever. And this quilt here is called It Makes Me Smile, because it does. This quilt, I started with 5.5-inch squares of shirting fabric. Shirting fabric was popularized again it was from the, I don't know how old, 40s, 30s. They made shirts out of these fabrics. And I found a shop in Monona, Iowa that had shirting fabrics.
What was special? Is it because it was a cotton blend or something?
It's a cotton blend,
Yeah.
So, but the people made their own shirts, their men's shirt at that time.
Yes.
So anyway, I found the bolts of it in a corner for $2 a yard and $3 a yard, and you don't find any.
Did you get excited?
Oh yeah, you don't get any fabric for $2 to $3
No.
a yard. So anyway, I bought lots of different patterns of shirting. So I sewed the orange peel. That's what this piece is called. It's made out of feed sack material and put the rickrack underneath. So I would machine applique that piece down with the rickrack underneath it. And then I would put 4 blocks together, similar backgrounds or whatever. There was no rhyme or reason.
Rick-rack, I'd forgotten that word.
Yes.
You put it around,
Rick-rack.
like a sundress.
A lot of people put them on aprons,
Yep,
whatever,
yep.
rickrack. And rickrack was from the 40s also. So it goes well with the colors of the feed sack because they were from the same era. And I didn't like the way my corners came together with my orange peels and rickrack, because here I used a big piece and this is a medium-sized piece. So I covered the corners with yo-yos.
Oh.
Made with the shirting material. Yes. And this quilt, it makes me smile, and this one here, we're in the Wisconsin State Quilt Show this last year, and in September. And then this one, it was in the Wisconsin State Quilting Show 2 years ago. Oh, and then here I have, this is a Halloween, make sure I got it right side up.
Yep.
Yep,
Or, well, almost.
almost.
Trick or treat.
Okay,
I guess it really
there,
is.
I can see where the sleeve is.
Yeah.
So this was different fabrics, but same color lot and style that I bought together to make this Halloween wall hanging. And of course, it has some yo-yos. It has some square pieces.
Those old-fashioned, the moon
Yes.
face.
Yes, I love the fabric. Yes. And then I quilted it. I call it primitive quilting because it's not small quilting, it's big stitches, but it holds the pieces together. I'm not able to do the small stitches. And then this is a wool piece that I did. Again, I like to make things with wool.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a wall hanging that hangs in my foyer. I change out wall hangings of quilts all year long.
Is there a certain season where you get more ramped up about quilting?
Yeah, when it's cold and I have
Yeah.
to stay inside. Yeah.
Fall and winter?
Summertime, I'm doing gardening. But,
Yeah.
And then the wintertime I can do.
Do you have a dedicated room? I'm hoping you say yes, but yeah. So you
I
don't.
live in a 4-bedroom house.
I know you do.
And 1 bedroom is for quilting.
Okay.
And 1 bedroom is for buttons, because I collect buttons.
I know you do.
And 1 room has a spare bed and a computer in it. And I store all my quilts on the bed so they lay flat.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my storage area for my quilts. And then I have a bed that I sleep in another bedroom. Yes.
I've seen you during certain estate sales.
Oh, yes.
Hunting down buttons.
Oh, yes. That's a whole nother world, yes.
It is.
I mean, the history of quilting and of buttons, is so interesting.
Well, it is, because you could have buttons made of diamonds, you could have plastic, you could have wood.
You can have many materials of buttons. Yeah, that's a whole nother show.
We need to do one on your buttons.
Yeah. Anyway, this is a quilt Suzanne Sobranic taught the class. And the heart pieces, we cut all the different pieces from all the different fabrics, and then you had them in piles, and you would pick one of this one of that one, and one of the other to make your rectangle-shaped hearts. So the hearts were all different.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll just leave that there for now. And this one is called Hearts and Dots. I'm not going to take it all the way out.
That's fine.
But again, I put the tongues on it because I like tongues. This is called my recovery quilt. Hearts and Dots from May 15th, 2001. It was designed by a designer named Janet Kahari. And I stitched on this quilt after a fall on the ice when I broke a vertebrae in my back.
Oh.
It's always good to have a project
Yeah.
around that if you something happens, you can have something to work on. And this is Provence fabric. My sister and I went to Provence, France, and this fabric, it was originally made in Turkey, and that's why you have the really bright colors, the yellows and the blues and the greens. But then France said that they were making too much money, so they banned them bringing in this Provence fabric, and it's called Provence fabric. So then the people in France had to learn how to make these designs and colors so they could control, the fabric. And they did eventually, by stealing things from other countries or whatever. And then they had these big blocks that they would stamp different designs on the fabric for their quilts that were called
This
Provence.
must be your most historical.
Well, yeah, kind of. I made 2 quilts out of the fabric that I bought in Provence. But, yeah. It's just really bright.
It is.
And they would take the Provence fabric and they would dress the whole royal family in this fabric. You couldn't believe some of the pictures,
Wow.
how gaudy they looked in them.
What era were those pictures from?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm thinking the, 1800s.
Okay.
Yeah. But, France took care of it. They said, you will learn how to make the fabric here so we don't have to import it in.
I see.
Yes.
Did we cover everything?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad I stopped by. I saw
Yes.
the signs, and thank you, Lorna. Or is it Queen Lorna or just Lorna?
Well, it's either way. My son gave me the picture for Christmas. And,
Yes.
And I just love it. It's a piece of cardboard, but it's, I did Christmas cards from the picture. And so I got a lot of comments on it.
Do you have a crown that you wear every day?
No, I don't know where the crown is. It's got to be full of jewels. I told my son that. What did you do with the
It
crown?
could be in France in a museum.
Yes,
You
probably.
have to make another trip there.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.